Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Jack's Mailbag, the series where I answer your baseball or Gamecock baseball questions. This week, I am joined by special guest and friend, Mr. Nick Proctor, who pitched for South Carolina last year as the Gamecocks went to the Super Regional last year. Nick, it's been a long time, man. How are you, my guy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. It's always good to reconnect. I know it's been a been a couple months since we've talked, but always honored to get on here and answer any questions you got. Talk Gamecock baseball.
Yeah. So, just before we get started, I know we kind of talked about it before the episode, but what have you kind of been up to, since your playing days came to an end?
Yeah. I had some opportunities to keep playing. None of them were like affiliated ball. I had like independent league or overseas offers. But I think I decided to kind of go out on a high note. I think the year I had last year with South Carolina was probably the most fun I'll have playing baseball. Playing in front of so many fans and in that league. So I was able to walk away from the game, but not completely. I'm still training kids, doing a lot of work back in my hometown out in California, helping high schoolers get ready to play at the next level. So it's been awesome. I'm still involved, and it's like baseball has been my whole life. So probably gonna do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, totally. So you still have a pretty good connection with the guys on the team, I'm guessing. I mean, it was just last year in June that you were wrapping up your time with South Carolina.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty good friends with almost everyone that was on the team last year. Obviously, there was a lot of turnover. Like a lot of guys left, a lot of guys got drafted. So there's also like a lot of new faces that I don't know too well, but definitely still keep up with a lot of the guys still there. Get the inside scoop on what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, like I said before, I got a few questions this week from our subscribers on Gamecock Central. So, gonna go ahead and ask you some of those, and then we can just keep firing away with these questions. But first question comes from Papa DeLuca, who asks, "Best pure stuff on the team currently? How about the year he was on the team?" So we can kind of start with who we think was who's got the best stuff on the team right now, in your opinion.
Man, um, from last year or this year, or both.
We'll start with this year, and then we can kind of go back to last year.
This year, man, this is a lot of question. It's tough because it's not like comparing apples to apples. Like a lot of guys do what they do really well. So like I'm really good friends with Veach, and I think like Veach will always have some of the best just stuff. I mean, like it's hard at this level to just throw the same pitch almost every time. Hitters know it's coming and they still can't hit it. It's a pretty ridiculous pitch, and it's not like that's all he has. Like he also is throwing like up to like mid 90s with a fastball. So I mean, he's always been tough to hit. Um, Other than that, I mean, obviously all the starters like Eli is really tough. I think it's it's hard to explain like what makes Eli so good until like you get in the box or like see it from behind him. But
Yeah.
like I mean, he throws so hard and like it's just like it's hard to see a fastball that moves that much, and it's like it's obviously tough for the hitters. Um, so I think like through and through, I'd say like Eli's up there for sure. Future's up there. Been really happy for SQ. Because I know like he didn't pitch that much last year, and then everyone was like hitting me up like, dude, like you gotta see SQ, like he's killing it this fall. I'm like, wow, that's crazy, like making these huge strides, he's throwing super hard. So seeing him like starting pretty consistently on Saturdays and honestly doing really well, has been awesome to see. His stuff I think has always been good, and I think he made some tweaks over the summer and fall, and has just really like brought his game to the next level. So he's definitely in the conversation for sure. And then honestly, some of the freshmen, like there's been some freshmen that are like I watch Gainey's not a freshman, but he's a transfer. I mean, dude,
Gainey's a
like that
transfer.
was
He's an older guy. I got to ask you, what do you think about his antics on the mound, man? Because I know you're a guy that pitches with a lot of swagger and stuff, but obviously Veach last year with his celebrations and stuff were nuts. But I mean, Gainey, it's kind of crazy thinking about the stuff that he does when he pitches.
yeah, and I mean, I love it. Like you always see the comments where people are like, "Oh, like hitters can't bat flip. Like why can he do that?" or this and that, and like people are always gonna hate. But I mean, to be honest, like you gotta kind of have that mindset on the mound, like that, like you're the best one out there, and that like no one's gonna be able to touch you and like pitch with emotion. And like I think guys like that, like they're gonna have a lot of success because like that's kind of what it takes. You kind of got to be a little psychotic out there, especially for the situations he comes into, like late inning, like
Yeah,
you gotta be on top of it. So I like it. I mean, pitching like with that much intensity, I think it's harder than some people like realize, especially when you play every day and every weekend in different cities. So it's cool to watch.
totally. I'm probably gonna go with for this kind of question. I'll probably go with honestly, dude. And I think you could speak to this. I think Matthew Becker's been pitching really well this year. I know last year some of his issues were kind of walks and that sort of thing. I thought he put a lot of guys on base, got into some jams, and he couldn't really pitch as deep into games as maybe he would have liked, especially as someone that was starting games in regional play. I don't think he started in the super regional, but anyway, this year I know he's pitched mainly out of the bullpen. I'm kind of hoping he gets a chance to start here soon. I think his strikeout numbers seem to be up. He's not putting a ton of guys on base, and he seems to be getting through innings. But I also have to agree with a guy like Eli Jones. I mean, watching him on Saturday, he took a perfect game into the seventh inning. And it's I wish he finished it off, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's one of the hardest things to do. And
the
unfortunately, I
hit
think,
that broke it up was kind of just like a little.
dude, they had the shift on.
Yeah,
So
that hurts.
the guy for Vanderbilt had hit it, I think, right between, I guess, where Parker Nolan should have been at second base, but of course they have the
Yeah,
shift on. It messes everything up. But he's been really good this year, and I know last year pitching was the main like mo of the team. You had guys like yourself, Will Sanders, Jack Mahoney, James Hicks. I can go name everyone on that roster, but I mean, it's this year. It's guys like Eskew and Jones and Becker and other guys like that are having to step up.
the
So
staff's been great this year. Like the numbers for the most part have been really good. And to your point, like yeah, I'd completely forgot about Becker, but he has some of the best natural stuff. Like it's just kind of a funky look. Like those are real hard fastball. Like he's another guy that like you could almost tell the hitter a fastball's coming, and it's hard for guys to hit. It comes from like a low slot, and it's hard to hit. And I think another sleeper one that I also forgot is Jerzenbeck, probably because he's
oh
hurt.
yeah, it sucks he's hurt, but I mean he had pretty good stuff last year. I know he struggled a little bit at times last year, if I'm not mistaken, but like when he was out there, I mean I think he threw pretty hard last year coming out of relief in some games, and you were just like, he's really solid, man.
I honestly think he might have had the best natural stuff. Like I think all of his struggles were more just like freshman struggles,
Totally.
like learning like the situations of the game or mentality. But I mean, I think overall stuff is like unbelievable. And I'm not sure if he's coming back this year or not. Um, but I think like the more we see him develop and grow and mature, like he's going to become one of those guys that's just impossible to hit.
Yeah. I've gotten this question before. I guess I'll ask you it. With Jers, he's got really good stuff. I think we've known him since he came to South Carolina. He's got Friday night stuff. We just haven't really seen it yet. Now, I had a question a few weeks back asking, is he going to go down the MLB draft route after this year? Because apparently he's eligible or whatever. In your opinion, like, what do you think he should be doing? Do you think it would be smarter to come back for another year and, you know, get full rehab from Tommy John? NIL is a big thing now where he can make some money and he could be a weekend rotation starter for South Carolina, whereas he'd have to go down the minor league route. And who knows what round he gets picked in, right?
Yeah, that's probably um like a super good question for
I guess for
like
him, but
yeah, for him. Because there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that like from the outside you don't know. But like if he's getting a lot of interest from scouts or teams and like it seems like he's gonna go, I don't know, like top 3 or 4 rounds, and it's like it kind of just becomes a money thing. But I mean, you're right. I think situations like this, maybe in the past, it would have been a slam dunk, like, oh, he's going to the draft. But now with NIL, it's like if he doesn't get as much in the draft or he wants to come back to school and pitch in his junior year, then it's like then you might end up seeing him come back. I know he loves South Carolina. He loves the town. He loves going to school there. So I mean, I could definitely see him kind of having that like unfinished business mentality and coming back. But yeah, to be honest, I haven't talked to him about it much. And I'm sure that's something that he's probably been thinking about. And I think as we get closer to the summer, he'll probably come up with whatever his decision is.
yeah, for sure. So, next question. This is a really loaded question. So, I'm going to try to break it down to sections here. Hampton Rhodes asks, all of a sudden, we seem to have a plethora of pitching talent. Do you see Roman Kimball coming out of the pen? And I can answer that question right now just to start off. Yeah, he has been coming out of the bullpen. I know you didn't play with Roman Kimball,
Oh, I
but
did.
But oh well, I mean,
Oh, he wasn't playing, but
he wasn't playing, but you know what I mean. Like he was, injured and rehabbing. I know he was doing the vlogs and stuff, which were I'm sure pretty cool. But what have you kind of thought about the way Roman's been pitching? I know he's been struggling with walks a little bit and stuff with post Tommy John.
yeah, I think he definitely has the stuff for it, and I think that like the question of Roman today versus the question maybe in May could be complete different answers. I think what people tend to forget too is like how difficult it is coming back from Tommy John. I know some people make it look easier than others, but I mean, he hasn't pitched since his freshman year, and now it's his junior year, and so like seeing him struggle with walks, I don't think should be a big red flag. I mean, it's not like he has gotten that many innings since coming back. So like when you don't pitch for a year or two, coming back, it's like you got to remember the flow of the game and like pitching in pressure situations. It's very much not like riding a bike. It's almost the opposite. It's not like just picking up where you left off. So, I mean, I think he has the stuff to be a starter. He's the stuff to be a reliever. I think the cool thing that South Carolina has right now is the depth, like you said. So it's like it's just going to give the coaches more flexibility. Whatever the rotation and the bullpen looks like right now, I promise will probably be different come May or June. Things are always moving around. So hopefully they just keep throwing him out there, getting him more experience, getting him more comfortable with it. And I mean, I think a lot of people know that Roman has the stuff to be, like a frontline weekend starter. So hopefully we'll see that emerge as he kind of gets back into the flow of it all.
Totally. And then the second part of this question is, will we see platooning at first with Gavin Casas and Tyler Causey? And I know you played with Gavin last year, so you could speak better to him. I can kind of, speak better to Causey here. But I don't know, because over the weekend, Nick, Gavin had been the usual starter at first, and then you have Tyler Causey at DH because I think Gavin has the better glove out there. But now we're in a situation where it's a lefty righty matchup and stuff. So I know you didn't hit at all at South Carolina. I think that would have been interesting to see. But I mean, from your perspective as a college baseball player, I mean, how much of matchups really matter in the game?
Matchups for sure matter. I think matchups, if anything, matchups matter. Um, like pitching wise, like I think when you go through your bullpen options, it's important to play the matchup game. I think from a hitting perspective, there's definitely like a balance there. Like it's good to try to put guys in situations where they can succeed, but I also think that like it's also possible to almost overdo it. Like when you know that like you have guys that are supposed to be your guys and they're going to go out and hit for you. Um, Sometimes I get annoyed when I see coaches like eager to make changes if they haven't hit in 3 weeks because I think we forget like how big the sample size needs to be in baseball, and it's like it's not easy to produce every weekend. And like I know it's their jobs, but I mean, at the end of the day, like it is a hard game. Hitting's hard. There's honestly a lot of luck that goes into it.
Yeah.
And so I think for a guy like yeah, I mean, and I can't really speak to it because like um his name's Clausy, right?
Yeah, Causey. Yeah.
Ozzy, yeah. I mean, he rakes. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, I think he's like got a really good swing and everything. But I mean, so does Gavin. And I think like the guys that have proven that they can rake, I really like just seeing them being out there playing every day, getting their at bats. I mean, that's honestly what it takes. And like Gavin's gonna come through. Um, he's been coming through. So I'm not sure if that totally answers the questions. I
Oh, I
think
think
like
I think it covered it. It's a weird question because we're talking about guys from last year's team and this year's team, and it's tough because obviously you don't know all the guys personally or whatever, what their strengths are and whatever on this year's team. So I think I answered the question as best as possible, but I do have one that I feel like you could probably answer a little better. VA Cock asks, "Hello, what's the feel for this season's team compared to previous seasons?" And I mean, you said you keep up with some of the guys on the team. What have they kind of been saying about how they're feeling about this team and what they've got going and whatnot?
yeah. Well, I actually haven't talked to any of them since the Vanderbilt sweep. So I haven't really been talking about. I'm sure the vibes right now are really good in the clubhouse. But just from watching, I mean, I think like it's pretty similar to last year. I mean, last year I'd say probably the big difference is we probably hit way more home runs at this point last year. But I mean, that's a high bar to recapture.
Yeah.
But I mean, they look good, and I mean, I think it's easy to freak out and be like, oh, we lost a series to Clemson and Ole Miss. But I mean, when you look at it, like Clemson, like they're not a bad team by any means. They're like a
Rose
top
is a
4 team
great
in the
team, man.
country, and played 2 games against them. Both of them
Yeah,
basically came down to the wire. And then you lost a series to Ole Miss on the road in the SEC, which is like it's understandable losing series in the SEC on the road.
yeah,
So I think like for all the panic that's kind of going on, I think some of it's unwarranted. I think the team does look really good. And I mean, when you look at it, like I know this might not even be the best answer, but um, like there's the right times and wrong times to get hot. So it's like you don't want to overemphasize being the best team in March. Like
yeah,
I think the best baseball team's going to play is down the road and in the future, and I think that's something to look forward to.
yeah.
Because like when this offense gets rolling and the pitching's rolling, I mean, like there's no doubt it's an Omaha caliber team.
And you speak about getting hot and stuff. And for last year, you guys seem to be playing your best baseball for from the start of the year to I want to say maybe like it was after I think it was like the LSU series. You guys were like 32 and 3 or whatever the record might have been. And then you guys obviously had that the little bit of a spiral after injuries happened, and then you guys go into the SEC tournament, get eliminated. I think it was like one of the early rounds. How did you guys manage to turn it around so quickly? Going into that regional, because I feel like that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Is that it's a quick turnaround going from Hoover to playing, in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean for the biggest thing for us is we were pretty banged up. Like we had guys that had it wasn't like we had super serious injuries, but I mean it was like guys had problems with their hamstrings or whatnot, and I think the team kind of just needed a breather. Because like the season's long, like travel's long, playing 50 some games, like it's a grind. And so I think honestly, like one of the best things that happened to us was that we didn't last super long in Hoover. It gave us a good amount of time to come back and just honestly relax, rest. Cause that's the thing we needed the most. And then I think when we got to the regional and we'd gotten some of that rest and some of the guys were healthy, and we had all the fans in the stands, I think that kind of brought the mojo back. Because it wasn't like as a team we had changed. I think we were a little wounded. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah, I mean that was crazy. We did get hot at the right time for sure.
yeah.
Um, we came up just short, but I think that was the biggest thing because we did have like a week break in there in between Hoover and the regional.
Totally. And what is it about playing on the road in the SEC that is so tough? Because it was the first weekend when South Carolina lost to Ole Miss. All the home teams that were hosting those series won their series, and no road team went and won 2 out of 3 at least. So, just can you kind of just speak to the perspective of pitching on the road in this conference and just how difficult it really is to win games?
Yeah, I mean I think the obvious answer is like SEC. Like every program has like a good amount of fans that are passionate. So it's like wherever you go, like there's going to be somewhat of a hostile environment. And then I think a big part of it that kind of goes I notice is like when you're playing on the road, like it's not just playing in like a hostile environment. It's like you're not at home, you're eating out pretty much every meal, you're staying in a hotel. Like there's a lot of logistical things that go into it, and it's just a lot more complicated than playing at home. And I think you could probably ask like any baseball player in the country. Like there's a different feel when you play at home. Like you've played on that field for every day the last year. Like you know the background, you know how the ball is going to play with certain weather on certain days. And it's like, I mean, like for us, when like we were playing at Founders, it was like you could literally bring like the Atlanta Braves, like we're gonna play like freaking good baseball at home because like that's our home turf, and like we're gonna defend it. Like, we got our fans there, so I think one, it's like playing at home, you just have a different level of confidence. It's like a lot of teams, like even if they're scuffling, like even if Ole Miss is having a bad couple years, like when they're playing at home, like they're gonna be more confident, and they're gonna give us your best shot. And then just being on the road, it's you're playing in a different park, different fans, it's different background. I know, like as a pitcher, this is like the weirdest thing, but I think a lot of other pitchers can relate. Like different ballparks, like the visual aid of being on a mound, like it's different. Like there's different backdrops. Some places the home plate looks way farther than it does at other parks. Just crazy because it's all 60 feet 6 inches, but the visuals of it sometimes can kind of play mind games with you. And like there's really no time to adjust. Like you get there and it's like you're playing like right there, and like you kind of just got to figure out. So there's a lot of little things that go into it. At the end of the day, like you could probably call a lot of them just like stupid excuses, but I mean, home field advantage is like a real thing. So
Yeah, and I think people tend to forget. Seriously, it's tough to win on the road in the SEC. And I mean, thinking back to last year when you guys were roaring hot in that regional, you guys had to go to Gainesville for the Super Regional, and I think at least to me, if you guys had hosted the Super Regional, I think we're talking about going to Omaha for the first time in over a decade. And I mean, it's a real thing. So
definitely, especially in the playoffs. I mean, I think anyone on the team could have told you like even if we were banged up or not, if we had a super regional at home, like we were not losing that.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many times we lost at Founders last year, but it wasn't many.
No, definitely not. Next question is a very long one, so bear with me.
Yeah.
Eddie J 1956 asks, "Please help me understand why Tippett continues to play and Ellis is not getting a chance. I love Will; he's a great defender, but he can't hit. He gets plenty of opportunities, but just can't get it done. I've heard that Ellis is no better at hitting, but he hasn't been on the field for multiple games as Tippett continues to get the opportunity. My thought is, what do you have to lose? Ellis can't be any worse than what we have right now. All right, so." Will Tippett. I know he's been struggling at the plate. His defense is a lot better than his offense. He's kind of, in my opinion, the weak link in this lineup that is otherwise very good. You played with Will last year. What's kind of your assessment of his play, and how do you feel like he can turn it around?
I mean, Tippett is like I think he probably flies low under the radar. Like I know it's obvious to look at like his average or be like, oh, he's not hitting. Tippett's like he's one of those kids that he's like phenomenal teammate, phenomenal defender. He's got sneaky leadership skills. Like he's not like the big vocal leader, but like he is like a big part of the team, and he's like the in the background. He's the glue. He's hyping people up, super supportive. And I mean, being the shortstop, like that's like the captain of the infield. Like there's a lot of things that he does really well that maybe fly under the radar. I think it's a little hard for me to speak 'cause I don't really know Ellis. I didn't play with him.
Yeah,
And so like I understand like if fans like what is there to lose um kind of mindset. But I mean, I promise you, like for all the people that are even like saying fire Kings whenever, like the coaching staff, like I mean, they get paid to do this. Like this is their job. Like it's not like they're like, oh, like we have some agenda to push. Like every time they go out there, like they're trying to win games, and like their livelihood depends on it. And like they're gonna put the guys out there that they believe are gonna win the game. And so I know sometimes it might be hard for some people to see it, but Tippett does a lot of things really well. He's clutch. He plays small ball. He does the things that the coaches need, that the team needs to win. Um, and a lot of stuff goes on in practice. I mean, like for guys that don't play, like there's a lot of opportunities where you kind of got to prove that you belong on the field. Um, and it's like, I don't know. I think in college, it's less about like people deserving chances, and it's more about earning it. So when you see Tippett run out, play shortstop every day, I promise you, it's because he's earning it every day. Um,
yeah.
even if it's maybe not as obvious to some people, there's a lot that Tippett does that means a lot to the team.
Yeah. And for all the crap that Tippett gets for his offense, which in my opinion, his defense and the other things that he can do kind of outweigh that. He also has a tremendous amount of speed, right? I mean, he's a guy that can easily turn a double into a triple, steal bases and stuff. And I think people are also forgetting, Nick, I don't know how much you watched of the Vanderbilt series on TV or whatever, but there was a double play he had turned, I think in the second game of the doubleheader on Saturday. It was like the fifth inning. He, starts the double play at short, and it changes the entire complexion of the game. So South Carolina goes on to score however many runs in the bottom of the inning and takes the lead and goes on to win the game. So my point is, it's not. I mean, while his offense isn't up to where you want it to be, I mean, that's kind of just. I don't want to say that's who he is at this point, right? But I think at some point you got to just accept the fact that like there are other things that he's doing right now to help this team win. And I mean, look, when 8 guys in your lineup are hitting the way they are, I think it kind of outweighs one bad day at the plate. So
100%. And I mean, like even if you're hitting under 200, there's a lot of other ways to have productive at bats. Um, that honestly, like I think if you were to look at it through the eyes of Monty Lee and the offensive approach, I think that they're chasing productive at bats and quality at bats over hitting statistics like average and stuff. And I know it's silly because at the end of the day, like average does matter, but
yeah,
I think the real important thing is the team approach and the strategy that they're going to take every day. face whatever pitching staff they're facing. So
Exactly. We got one more question here from Steve Type, who asks, "How is Kennedy Jones doing?" And Nick, I would say, just how familiar are you with Kennedy Jones? He obviously didn't play on the team last year, but he's been an important part of this lineup for South Carolina, hitting the 3 hole now, getting consistent at bats, and he seems to be a nice, I don't want to say break, but he's a nice 3 hole hitter in between Messina and Petrie, who obviously you know pretty well.
yeah, I was gonna say. So I don't know him too well. I mean, I know that he was arguably the biggest transfer portal pickup this past offseason. I think like exactly what you just said is the key. I think at the beginning of the year, like maybe when there was some lineup struggles, it almost seemed like Petri and Messina were pressing a little, like trying to carry the whole load of the offense. So I think having guys like him come into the center of the lineup and like really put good at bats up, have a good approach, like have a good average, but also have like good power. I think that it really helps balance the lineup out. Because I think when you're a pitcher, if you kind of only have to deal with like if you go into a lineup and you're like, oh, there's only like a couple big power threats, like you can kind of like maneuver your way through them. But like when they're back to back to back, it's like it makes it tough because you can't just keep putting guys on or pitching around guys. Like you're gonna have to throw these guys good pitches, and when you throw those guys good pitches, like they're gonna make you pay. So I think he definitely is like put him in between them is makes the lineup really dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. So, while that's the end of the questions we got from the fans on the Insiders Forum, did want to ask a few more just to, round everything out with
Yeah.
obviously we kind of touched on it before. Mark Kingston, he, whether he deserves it or not, catches a lot of flack, from the fan base. And, after dropping the Ole Miss series, it felt like a lot of people were thinking he's not the guy for the job, this and that. I wanted to ask someone that played for Kingston. What is your favorite thing about him as a coach, and just what makes him the right guy for the job? Because in my opinion, I think he's doing a heck of a job. I mean, it's not every day you can have a coach that goes out there. You have a chance to sweep Vanderbilt, and he ends up going with a freshman starting pitcher and does his job. So I think he, probably deserves a little more credit than he's given. But from your perspective, what are your thoughts on playing under Kingston?
I loved Kingston. I think something that like was my best memory of him is he's like a big time players coach, and I think for me like that's something that I was really looking for and something that I really enjoyed. I mean, like he puts the players first. He has good relationships with the players, and like no matter what happens, like he's always gonna be supporting his guys. And at the end of the day, like that's what you need in a head coach. I mean, like as a pitcher, like you spend most of your day with the pitching coach. The hitters probably spend most of the day with the hitting coach. But like you really need like that central guy that's like gonna go to war for you and like someone that like you're really supporting and like yeah, like I want to go win for Kingston. And so I think while it's easy to be like, oh, like we didn't win it all last year or we lost the series this year, like fire Kingston, I think like you kind of just gotta assess like how the team was, I don't know, a couple years ago and like where we are now. Because now it's like South Carolina loses a series, it's like huge upset. Like it's like South Carolina is definitely trending in the right direction in terms of baseball. And I know the fan base can be restless at times. I can be too. Um, but I think seeing them trend up in the right direction every year is a big thing. I mean, like this year, I mean, they're right now they're in the top 15 of every poll,
Yeah.
and I think they're going to continue to climb that. And I mean, the program deserves to be like one of the blue bloods of college baseball. I think Kingston's doing a good job at bringing them back. I mean, heck, last year I think we were easily a top 3 team in the country. This year they have the chance to be the exact same.
Mhm.
Um, and so I mean, I think like it's really hard to complain about the job that he's done. He's done a great job on the recruiting side. He's done a great job at bringing in the right coaches. Um, and from what I've heard, he's done a great job at replacing Coach Parker. Sounds like everyone likes the new guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's pulling the right strings. But I think, like at the end of the day, like I think a lot of people also realize that, like, with all these good moves he's making, like if team goes out and loses a game, like Kingston's not the one on the field that's losing the game. Like, sure, he's making the changes and writing the lineup and whatnot, but I mean, like teams have off weekends. It's like we've said a million times. It's hard to win on the road. It's not always just Kingston's fault. Like there's guys that need to step up and there's guys that are going to continue to step up. And so I think he's done a really good job of putting the team in a spot to really make a push this year.
Mhm.
So it's exciting to see what they can do.
Totally. And you mentioned Dylan Eskew earlier. I wanted to touch base on him again real quick. You know, with the way the rotation's been pitching, it's hard not to notice that he hasn't exactly been providing a ton of length, right? And I don't think it's his fault necessarily. I think he's a good pitcher, has good stuff. I mean, you spoke to it earlier, what you've seen from him. It's just, he's not able to go super deep into games. What makes you believe he can go ahead and, still turn it around? And, what would your advice be to him as someone that, you pitched for 5 years in college baseball? I mean, you've seen a lot of action at Cal and Carolina. What would your advice be to him and, going through some struggles?
Yeah, I mean, I think struggles would maybe be like a bit of a strong word. Like it's not like he's pitching bad. I think
No,
he's pitching
it's
good,
just
but
nice pitching
obviously,
deep.
yeah, obviously, I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying. So I think like in the college, just from my perspective, the college game, if you look at it compared to like the big leagues, like it's a little different. Like the big leagues, you play every day for 160 days or whatever, and it's like you need your starters to give you length because there's only so many guys in the bullpen that can pitch every day.
Yeah.
College is a little different. Like every game feels like the World Series. Like it really does. Like every game is a dogfight. Um, and for 3 days a weekend, like there's with the depth that the bullpen has, um, I think he's been doing like what the coaching staff needs. And I get that it's not like you're looking at his stats and it's like 6 innings, 6 innings. Like I get that it's like 4 1/3 or whatnot. But I mean, also like he didn't pitch much last year. I think he's still probably building into learning how to start
Mhm.
for this team, how to start in the SEC. Like it's facing these lineups is really difficult, and especially facing them 3 times is much, much, much more difficult. So I mean, I think the only advice I could really give him is just continue to attack. I think like he's got plenty good stuff. Um, so I think if he can just attack more, maybe avoid some of the longer counts, some of the longer innings, you'll start to see him go 5, 6, 7 innings. Um, so I mean, it's good, and I think like it's cool for him going on Saturday. He's gonna be able to watch Eli pitch every Friday, and see how Eli attacks these lineups. Um, and so I think he's probably gonna learn a lot from Eli and from the staff and from the other guys. Um, but yeah, I mean, I hope they keep putting him out there. I mean, he deserves it. He's a phenomenal guy. Um, but yeah, that's probably it for the advice I have for him. I was never really much of a starting pitcher myself. I
Yeah.
get tired after throwing like 25 pitches. So I mean, I can't even imagine how
Yeah.
they do it. But yeah, once again, I mean, he's not in a bad spot. He's not struggling. Things could be much worse.
Exactly. That's a
And
good point.
I think it's gonna be big for him to to continue to step it up and give some more length and pitch some of these big games. Because I mean, Saturdays are arguably one of the most important,
Yeah.
if not the most important day of any weekend. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got one more for you here. With the bigger picture thing, I know we're only 2 weekends into SEC play right now, and South Carolina is 4-2 in league play, which is pretty good. But obviously, there's a lot of tough series coming up. You still got to face Texas A&M. You got to go, unfortunately, back to Gainesville in a few weeks, and Arkansas, teams like that. Clemson at some point again to play that third game of the series. What makes you feel that this team can sustain success and maybe try to be better than what last year was, where you guys ultimately came up short?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to look at the SEC schedule and be like, man, like poor South Carolina, they got to play all these top 10 teams. But the reality of it is, I mean, that's kind of how it is every year. And I think every year there's series where you could look at it and be like, man, like how are they going to survive that? But I mean, honestly, like a lot of it comes back to the coaching staff. I mean, they do a phenomenal job in the offseason preparing guys for this, preparing guys for when things get tough, for tough environments. I mean, I'm sure you guys see it all the time. Like I think it's like a tradition now. Every offseason, you go down to Fort Jackson, you get yelled at by the military people. I mean, the offseason is tough for a reason, and it gets these guys in great mental and physical shape, and it's for these exact reasons. I mean, you start getting to the dog days of the season, it starts getting really hot out in some of these towns. You're playing number 4 in the country, number 6 in the country, the top team in the country, whatever it is. But I mean, this is why we play. It's what they're built for. It's pretty much all they know to do. And I mean, I'm sure all the guys on the team are really excited. You'd rather be playing the best teams than playing teams that don't matter. So that's kind of what you sign up for when you're in the SEC. I think we have way more than enough talent to go in and win all these series. Will we go in and win all the series? I mean, more than likely, I'm sure we'll probably lose some series and win some series, but that's kind of how it goes. And I think that's like the fans are going to see that like, these guys are going to go out and they're going to compete their butts off and they're going to go toe to toe with the best teams in the country. And it's going to be exciting to watch. I mean, I think that's like what you want as a fan. You want exciting games, and you want a team that you know that can compete with these really good teams. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be interesting to see how the next couple months go. Really rooting for them to be better than we were last year, and hopefully host a super this year. So come out and watch them go to Omaha. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a gauntlet, but they're built for it.
Yeah, real quick, can we expect to see you back in Columbia anytime soon for games this season at all? I mean, I know you're all the way in California, but I mean,
I'm actually looking into booking a trip real soon. I'm trying to get out there, hopefully before it gets way too hot, but I might be missing that boat. It's
yeah,
kind of getting to the time of year where things are gonna get hot, but I think I remember April being a really nice month to be out there. So hopefully, maybe in a couple weeks or a month, I'll be out there. Um, yeah, you will be seeing me before the season's over for sure.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure. Nah, man, dude, that Columbia heat, it's brutal, especially in June when you got to go, play in Columbia, and then you got to go to Florida of all places where it's upper 90s and all that. So,
Yeah, that place gets hot. That place is a tough place to play. I'll
oh,
tell you, it's
it's underrated in my opinion. So,
yeah, it's fans were not nice. I'll tell you that much.
yeah.
At least I don't have to go to Texas A&M. I heard that's the worst one.
Oof, yeah. Oh man, that's a few weeks away. But anyway, Nick, if you also want to just let the people know where they can follow you on Twitter, Instagram, that sort of thing.
Yeah, my Instagram I think is Nick Proctor 7, and then my Twitter is Nick Proctor 10. Basically, if you see an account that's reposting a bunch of South Carolina baseball stuff, that's gonna be me.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Nick, for joining me today. Really appreciate it, man, and look forward to hopefully catching up when you're back in Columbia at some point, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's always awesome to reconnect. Also, awesome talking about Gamecock baseball. I mean, it's
Yeah.
probably like the highlight of my day today. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, for sure. That's gonna do it for us today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.